Hello, everyone. Welcome to Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms series. Erik Roth, shamanic astrologer, and here to talk about the next big thing that's happening in April. Actually, there's a couple of big things happening in April, including a Mercury retrograde, which I'll probably be writing about more than doing a video about that, since it happens fairly frequently. But that one will be taking place in the sign of Taurus on beginning April 21st of 2023. But I'll be talking about another subject, and this one happens twice a year, typically. Sometimes, on a rare occasion, it may happen up to 3 times a year, but that's, again, it depends on the seasons that show up. Yeah, we'll be talking about solar and lunar eclipses today and the season that's coming up beginning on the 19th/20th of April. So a lot to share about that, and just a few quick pieces of news about my upcoming events that I'm doing. One is upcoming in Grants Pass on the 13th of April. I'll be talking about Pluto and Aquarius. And you can find more information about that on my Facebook astrology page. And I'm going to be doing some travels here in Oregon and this month and in May for some holistic fairs that I'm involved in here. I'm also planning some other classes in the future, including one in May 20th and 21st in Salem at the Quantum Light. And so look out for that. It's an astrology basics course. All right, but without further ado, let's get into the video about solar eclipses. Okay, so we can see this eclipse season coming up here in, this month, and it's the second part to that is in the month of May and the first week of May. This is episode 47 of the series for Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. I have another series that is about the planets and signs. The recent the Saturn and Pisces episode, and the Pluto and Aquarius episode. You can look for that on my YouTube channel for more information. And then next month, I'll be making a Jupiter in Taurus video. So a lot of transitions of planets, especially particularly outer planets into new signs, and that's going to be a really big theme for the next few years, actually, with both Uranus and Neptune going to be transitioning as well in the coming mid 2020s, along with, I think, Chiron not too long after that. Will be also transitioning. So we have a lot of transformation, a lot of transition taking place, and the eclipses are just, keep pumping out more and more eclipses each and every year. Typically 2 eclipse seasons each year, sometimes 3. But this time there's only 2 eclipse seasons and 2 eclipses each season. Sometimes there could be up to 3 eclipses in one season. So. But not this particular season. These are potent ones. All right, so what are the eclipses? Well, we have April 19th, 20th. We have a hybrid solar eclipse, and that squares Pluto. We also have a May 5th penumbral lunar eclipse, conjunct the star Zubanel Janubi, and I'll have charts showing these particular eclipses as well. We're going to talk a little bit about Aries and Scorpio. Not just the sign by itself, but also in its meaning around each of these 2 eclipses. And the lunar nodes, which are also going to be transitioning in July to Aries and Libra, that'll be talked about more in the coming months. So we still have some time before that transition takes place. All right, so what are the 4 eclipses for 2023? This is something I shared in my 2023 video back at in December. So you can look for that on my YouTube channel as well. So here's the first one, April 19th and May 5th. And it's actually the April 19th eclipse is also, where it's visible is going to be April 20th. But here where I am, it's April 19th here on the west coast of North America. Then the second season, October 14th and October 28th are the two eclipses. One is an annular solar eclipse in Scorpio, which will be hitting the United States, including Oregon. And then the second one is on October 28th, 2023. That's a partial lunar eclipse, and that'll happen in Taurus and be on the other side of the planet from where I am, pretty much all of Asia, Europe, and Africa, and Australia. So that'll be, it's a lot of these eclipses, 3 out of the 4, with the exception of October 14th, are taking place on the sort of the eastern hemisphere region of the planet, including the Indian Ocean, Asia, Australia, and a little bit of Europe. Like one of the eclipses, which is October of 2023 at the end, will also take place in Europe. So we have most of the focus is on one half of the planet, and with the exception of the October 14th, 2023 annular solar eclipse. All right, so let's talk about the first eclipse, and it involves Aries. So let's just share about what the qualities of Aries are about. So this is an archetype of the rugged individualist, mission and action-oriented archetype here. So traditionally seen as the, quote, warrior, it is a sign that takes full advantage of instinct and intuition to guide the self through, I got a little misprint, the itself guides itself, or the self through the journey. It is assertive, fiery, and restless, and can be great and overcoming obstacles. So when things are thrown in its direction, Aries, with its purpose and mission, that's where it can really thrive, is overcoming that through its will, through its instinct, through its intuition, through its ability to take action, and be decisive. And that's how it can show up in the world. It got the warrior archetype because it kept being associated with war and soldier and defender. But I try to stay away from the warrior archetype just as the name, because it's the connotation with war is built into it. But I do reference it, and it's part of its origin from last few thousand years, at least, since the patriarchal age that we live in has kind of been built into this particular sign. So, but once it's devoted to the mission, it's clear-cut and decisive, and it can also be focused on a goal, mission, purpose that it may have trouble seeing anything outside that narrow spectrum. So it can have like its blinders on when it's so focused on something, it may not be able to see anything beyond it. When it's not involved in a mission and purpose, it can be easily distracted, meaning that it doesn't know where its mission and purpose is. So it's going here, it's going there, and seeing this, it's doing that. It's a very restless energy. So, but once it knows where it should devote its energy to, it's a really powerful archetypal force in the world. So this hybrid eclipse, which is the reason it's called hybrid, because it's a combination of annular and a total solar eclipse. So it's the first of 4 2023 eclipses, and this means that both total and annular eclipse are covered by the disk of Earth's moon, and it'll be visible in Australia, East Timor, Papua, and Australia, and some nearby areas. During this kind of eclipse, the moon isn't close enough to the Earth at the beginning, and then it starts its annular time, and then it moves into total after. So it's like just getting close enough where it has the annular as a ring around the moon, and where you see that's why annular means ring. And when you think of things of an annual, when things are annual, it's sort of a timeline that is a ring, and you can associate it with that as a sort of the origin of that word. So this night sky picture is where the eclipse is going to take place. And this is as seen from the west coast, the northwest coast of Australia. And this is the fish constellation. And here's the ram just to the right of it. And what's interesting about this is that where I live, this is right. This is the flipped the other way around, where we're normally used to seeing it. Most of the world's population, Northern Hemisphere, sees it in that way. But down here, down under, you can see the constellations upside down. And when this eclipse is total, a person may be able to pick out Jupiter. You know, depending on where you are in the path, you may be able to see Jupiter, which is still relatively close to the sun at this time. Here's Mercury and Uranus and Vesta. So yeah, that varies, but this is it's kind of in this space at 2950 Aries, which I'll talk about here in the chart, and also look at the Sabian symbol as well. Okay, so at 1:34 a.m. Universal Time is when this eclipse takes place. The where the center total is only going to be 1 minute and 16 seconds, so it really isn't going to be that long of a duration of an eclipse. Here on the Pacific coast, that's 6:34 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. On the east coast of North America and the U.S. At 9:34 Eastern Daylight Time. So this map is from timeanddate.com, and I encourage you to. It's got all the eclipses on there, including the eclipse paths, and you can type in what city you're in, and it'll show you whether you can see it or not. It's a great resource, and I love accessing it every time I do an eclipse video, or if I'm looking at eclipses, or maybe trying to count the number of days between cycles. Then it's got a calculator in there for calendar days, and they include leap years and all of that in there. So it's a great resource. Here's what the chart looks like on the 19th, 20th eclipse. So here's the eclipse here at 2950 Aries, right in the center. And we can see here it squares Pluto. Now, some astrologers would look at this and go, well, it's out of sign, and that means it's not as much, it's a different kind of an influence. But on a geometric level, the square is a square, and it's pretty darn close. It's within about 2/3 of a degree of an exact square. So it's pretty amazing. And we can see all of these planets and asteroids all packed in here in about a 60-degree zone. And if you would include Venus in there, that would extend to about roughly a little over 70 degrees. But this is, it's really rare for all these planets to be all clustered into the space. So, and the eclipse just kind of magnifies this. It puts it right in the center of that, with Pluto in a way anchoring this. In a sense, it's helping providing balance to that. So the eclipse, so something with Pluto, it stresses on a mundane or word level, it stresses the vitality of our emergence, humanity's emergence or evolution of our soul. It makes this a pretty potent eclipse too, through the death rebirth theme. In a combination with the Sabian symbol, which I'm going to talk about, it definitely means a critical passage for the human family and deep soul work. It is the dark unknown lit by the spark of consciousness. So it's this balance between the light and something seeded, and something transformational, meaning it has also going through this underworld process. And this is incorporating the Pluto Aquarius energy into that space there. So what's the Sabian symbol? Well, this would be 30 Aries, meaning that's the Sabian symbols are counted from 1 to 30, and the degrees, the zodiacal degrees, are from 0 to 29. So Linda Hill, who has written the book, The Sabian Oracle, she shares that the symbol is imagined or is imaged as a duck pond and its young brood. Keywords: nurturing family, contentment, realizing limitations, the problems and joys and responsibilities of having a brood to look after, finding friends or family that enrich one's life, psychoanalysis, including symbolism, family patterns and analysis, family support, family sphere, feeling safe in one's environs, and being the mother duck, taking care of one's young, adoption, families, communes, communities, basing the music that you've composed. So it's like you've seeded that music, you've composed it. Now it's time to bring it to its maturation, and that's what the ducklings represent there. So if we think about this, this part of what is weaved in here in this eclipse is about family and caretaking of the young, especially the safety of the parent. But also add it's about the education of the young too, and taking action to be part of the family and learning to become one's potential. So family isn't just regulated to say a blood family. It could include family of friends, one's larger community, or the human tribe. I certainly think that that's weaved into this space, into the symbolism here. Okay, so let's take a look at the eclipse family, because every eclipse has part of an eclipse family. So speaking of families, this is Saros 129. Saros represents an eclipse family, and they are part of an 18.03 year cycle, 18 years and 11 days. So an eclipse families can last anywhere from 1200 to 1500 years. And the last time an eclipse of this family took place was in April 8th of 2005. And the next one will take place in 2041. And it will continue to go on. We're about a little more than bit more than halfway through. And it will only be partial eclipses beginning in 2203. So when that's sort of the waning side of the eclipse family. The center of it are the total solar eclipses and annular solar eclipses. And then once it gets to 25, 28, that's the end of that eclipse family. So the second eclipse, oh, and by the way, you can find this information on NASA's website. They have the whole pages dedicated to eclipses and how long they last, where they're located. So that's another great resource for looking up solar and lunar eclipses and their families, and a lot of data in there to derive from. So Scorpio, the qualities of this archetype, which is this upcoming penumbral lunar eclipse, this archetype is of the shaman or the sorceress. It's about life force energy, channeling, practice, and utilization of it for self-exploration. Scorpio works to help hold the mysteries within while also mastering of the emotional and physical domains. Scorpio is gifted with a very strong will, desires, passions, and depth of its nature. It's a very complex archetype in that way, whereas Aries has more simplicity weaved into that role, whereas Scorpio is a bit more a different kind of developed archetype here. So some of its shadow, Scorpio shadow, relates to the hidden nature of magic and the traumas of others' fears, of Scorpio over the last few thousand years. So Scorpio has been one of the, well, really all 12 signs have been in some way either invalidated in some fashion, repressed, or violated, changed in some way, transformed. And we're in an age now where these archetypes are coming online more in a wide variety of ways, that where things where in the past, if they were repressed, they're now coming out and being seen more fully. Now, it's coming in fits and starts, so it's not a smooth linear development. It's going to be some time before all of them are fully seen. But Scorpio is one of those ones that's been kind of hiding, if you will, in the mysteries. And I do believe, certainly in the last few decades, it's definitely been taking back its core nature, its essence. And in the coming decades and centuries, it'll definitely be more fully alive and vital in humanity. So where does this eclipse take place? Well, this is a penumbral one, so it's only like the shadow of the shadow, and the entire duration is 4 hours and 18 minutes. But it's barely seen. You really have to be under some really ideal conditions to see the shadow of the shadow and know what you're kind of looking at when to detect it. But here's the area of the Earth. Parts of Africa on the East Coast can see it. Portion of Antarctica, most of Southeast Asia, pretty much all of Southeast Asia and Indonesia and Australia, India, China, Mongolia, and parts of the Middle East, and even some of the Central Asian countries can see it as well. So that's where it will take place. It'll go on being at 8:15 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So most of the eclipse is going to be on May 5th, but some parts of it will be on May 6th. And let's look at, we already looked at that. Okay, so here's where it will be in the sky. So this is a night sky image taken from using Stellarium, like I used the last one, software, but as seen from New Delhi, India. We can see the moon here with Zubin el-Janubi. That's a star that represents, along with Zubin el-Shamali, represents the scales. So the weighting of the scales and balance is really strong in this particular penumbral eclipse, which is a full moon eclipse. So this is the second of the 4 eclipses, and I already shared where it's going to be visible, and it'll only be like, as you can see here, it still looks kind of like a full moon, but there's a very faint shadow on it. We can think of it as the shadow of Earth. So we can say, the shadow of the shadow, which means not quite, it kind of scrapes along the actual shadow. But, sometimes when we're walking outside, we might be able to, depending on how the shadows are, we can see like a faint outline beyond just the regular shadow. So that's what this is about, is like that sort of that faint shadow of the shadow. The moon will not pass over the exact shadow, they'll pass near it. And typically when there are total solar eclipses or annular eclipses, there are no total lunar eclipses taking place during that season. That's just the way how the rhythm of the moon and the sun and the earth are in this and the way the eclipses show up in that way, in that pattern. So let's take a look at, first I want to look at the astrology around this. And this, you can see right here, the moon sitting at just about 15 degrees Scorpio, 1458. Zubin el-Janubi's right a little bit, just over 15 degrees Scorpio. So it's right in that zone where the moon is. So the moon will be right there where you saw it in that sky. And the sun, of course, will be opposite, but the sun will be accompanied by Uranus and Vesta and Mercury, and to a lesser degree, the North Node, all wrapped up into the space in Taurus. So this is included in that eclipse energy. There's a theme here of a full illumination of the balance of the shadow and the light. This is more of a recognition or awareness of our shadow, but not a deep dive into it. It is also highly unpredictable. It is also highly unpredictable energetically, which means if we are expecting chaos, then it is unlikely to appear that way. It could be more about opportunities to relax and journey to the deeper realms while the body feels good. So I'd already talked about the great scale. So yes, I mean, typically seeing Uranus could represent a disruption, a force of disruption and chaos. But I've seen it where it's been an aspect to other things, and where if we're expecting a big disruption, chaos, it ends up becoming an unexpected novelty where it's a smooth ride. Like, oh my gosh, I'm expecting, like, for example, a lot of tension maybe between 2 people, and you're going to have this, really sweating over a particular conversation, discussion. Maybe it's with a family member over a very sensitive issue. And then you go to them and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, it's okay. it wasn't as bad as you first thought. That's how I see this. However, I always leave open the possibility of an extreme disruption around this energy here, particularly when we're talking about Scorpio and Taurus and Uranus. So just something to be aware of. Mercury is also retrograde during this time. So there's a greater energetic emphasis in the sign of Taurus. It doesn't mean retrograde is bad. It just means that there's a more creative element here happening. And so there's a potential, especially along with Uranus, for some breakthroughs to happen around I think on a mundane level, our conveniences, our pleasures in life, what we savor, could be, entertainment, how we relax, how we connect with nature, and in particular, our relationship to the earth. I definitely think that that's also in the cards energetically of this eclipse. And the eclipse window is more than just those moments of the eclipse or those hours of the eclipse, but we can apply this to really any eclipse, but the day before and the day after are also in that sort of that zone from a shamanic perspective here. So the Sabian symbol for this is 15 Scorpio. We round up to add 1 to that, and it becomes that next one up. So this is a children playing around 5 mounds of sand. That's the Sabian, or that's what the Linda Hill's Sabian Oracle shares. But the key words of this is creative integration of new ideals. It's 5. 5 is an interesting number. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So 5 being the number of mankind, according to her symbolism here. We could also say more, not mankind, because it includes everyone, so humanity. The value of play and getting to know one another, playgrounds, crop circles, the desert, throwing caution to the wind, hide and seek, shifting sands, rituals, American Indian rites. We could also say ceremonies too, the love of the physical world, the 5 senses, carefree and happy playgrounds, pentacles, witchcraft, and Solomon's seal. So there's a lot of creative and magical energy in this. In fact, the symbolism around this is about magic and creativity and coming together in order to create magic. So magic and creativity already in the atmosphere in order to create magic. So to me, this particular time would be a great day for ceremony, like May 5th, a wonderful day, a full moon eclipse. Even though it's not total, it's still in that energy, it's still in that zone, a great time for a magical ceremony, for connecting with life force energy and doing something, I would say, pleasurable and that feels good at the same time. 5 is also a powerful Venusian number. 5 is the number of points that in an 8-year period where Venus rises, and almost to the day in an 8-year period. So it's a powerful 5, 8, and 13 are powerful numbers around Venus and the feminine in particular here. So the symbol of the pentacle or the pentagram, it's Venusian, it's the feminine. And it was a symbol that was thrown into the space of, evil and projected and then even adopted in some quarters as something evil. But what it really is a strong symbol of the feminine. And we can see that this eclipse is, connecting us, humanity, back into that space. And particularly with life force energy and magic and creativity. And so I encourage everyone to kind of connect into that. It's more of definitely an inner journey with this eclipse, but one could connect with others in play and creativity and magic, in doing ceremony or rites or rituals that are, that sort of help evolve the space of what we're all trying to do, and bringing people together and an integration of new ideals here. So I love this because there's both a physical component of the 5 senses and the component of the magic and creativity, which are more intangible, but I would say even more connected to that strong life force energy and will. Okay, here's the Saros family here. This lunar eclipse is 141, and this eclipse, last of this family, took place back in 2005, April 24th, and that was at 419 Scorpio. And this particular one, as we can see, is, I was at 1458 Scorpio. And then when we fast forwarded another 18 years, it's May 15, 2041, and it advances to 2532 Scorpio. So this lunar eclipse is actually on the buildup. And the next eclipse in this family will actually be partial. And then in 2167, it'll become total. So as this family goes on, every 18 years, it'll build up upon itself and continue until 2888. And the total duration, lifespan of this family is 1280 years. So that's what I've got for the two eclipses. Certainly more can be inferred and interpreted with these eclipses. Otherwise, if that's the case, we'd have a 3-hour video. But you can find me at inspiralnexus.com and sign up for my newsletter there. As you know, I have a YouTube channel here. You can email me at inspiralnexus@gmail. I also do personal astrology readings, classes, events, and astrocartography. And I'm based in Southern Oregon here in Medford. But I certainly frequent Ashland and Grants Pass, and I'm connected to Jacksonville and other places around Southern Oregon, and not far off north is Eugene, and 4 hours north of here is Portland. So I'm based in there, and Shasta is only a couple hours south. So if you're interested in in-person reading, I'm happy to do that locally. I do Zoom readings and also phone call readings. And I'm also doing I've got another online course series that I'm doing with Kaylin Castell. You can find our information at mystaralchemy.com, where we're doing about stars and ceremony and magic with the stars. So I wish everyone a very happy day, and go out there and connect with the night sky and the eclipses. And I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.